Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Andy Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And it is my honor to present today's guest, Shmuly Rothman. Hi, Shmuly.
Hi, Adi.
It's so good to have you here. I am very excited about our conversation today because we're going to talk about subjects that inspire many of us. But first, I know it's a little bit of a mystery what we're going to be talking about, but first I want to introduce you properly. So Shmuly is the founder of Rothman Coaching, LLC, and he lives in a world of creating solutions before the problems ever begin, which I think is great because you want to have the solutions first so then you can tackle every problem that comes your way. He runs an international coaching practice for leaders in the worldwide Chabad movement. And if you don't know what Chabad movement is, we're going to talk about that, so our listeners will become familiar with it. And Shmuly you live with your family in Boynton Beach, Florida. Therefore, the background for those of you, some of our listeners are going to listen to the audio only, but those of you that have the ability to watch the video, you can see the beautiful day behind Shmuly, and that's definitely Florida weather. And you travel the world daily while virtually supporting the success of the greatest Jewish leaders. And that's just a small bio here that doesn't really do you justice to who you really are and to the effect and to the help that you actually provide leaders, religious leaders, Jewish religious leaders all over the world. But let's start a conversation because our listeners probably think, what's the connection between this and systems? Well, there is a big connection because in order to be successful, you have to have systems in place so you can help as many people as possible. And we're going to touch on that as well. But first, Shmuly, why don't you give us a little bit of a background to those listeners that are just tuned in and they want to have a better understanding of who you serve and what you do.
Well, thank you, Adi, for the warm welcome. And it's a privilege to be here. You mentioned it's a Florida background. It's from the nicer days in Florida. Otherwise, I'd be inside in an air-conditioned room.
That's right.
Who I serve. So I was blessed to be a Chabad rabbi, a representative of the Chabad movement in Toledo, Ohio, and in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for quite a number of years. And as part of this network that brings Jewish outreach to all four corners of the globe, to wherever the Jewish people might be, whatever language and culture they might be in, the mission and vision of the Lubavitcher Rebbe of blessed memory, Rabbi Schneerson, was that there should be a home, a house, a synagogue, a place of worship that is open and available and welcoming to every Jew wherever they are, whatever level of observance, interest, wherever they might be. The door should be open 24 hours a day. And the way he put it simply was, as so many have hunted down the Jewish people in hatred, our job is to seek them out with love. There's always an open door, there's always an embrace, there's always an emotional embrace, there's always some good food on the table, and a welcome path towards the tradition.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful explanation, very clear, concise. So you help those that are actually opening those houses or maintaining those houses.
Correct. Chabad House is the traditional term for the organizations that are spread out throughout the world. And after having worked with college students at the University of Toledo and Bowling Green State University, based out of Toledo, Ohio, and then doing youth programs in Pittsburgh for 6 years, I turned my mistakes, my painful mistakes, my avoidable mistakes into a practice to teach others how to get it right the first time and how to learn some of the things we're not taught in traditional rabbinic schooling, so that when we're interfacing with the real world, a little bit of knowledge and hands-on practice could guide us to more success, more happiness, less avoidable mistakes, painful mistakes.
Right. It's interesting because I interviewed many entrepreneurs on my podcast and work with hundreds of clients. And what I've seen is that you can have an entrepreneur that is very good at what they do. Let's say, for instance, if the person is a dentist, they're very good at being a dentist. But one thing that is missing from their education is how to be a business owner and how to actually make sure that they are a good manager, that they can expand their practice, that they are making the right decisions. And the same thing applies to also a rabbi in that regard, because they can be very good and very gifted at what they do, but they still need to survive in this world. They still need to have enough wherewithal in order to support the organization. They will need to use the help of others in order to grow and expand. They will also face those problems, and you are there to guide them throughout those circumstances or throughout those problems, whether they happen or not. And as you said, you find the solutions before the problems even happen, or help them with the solutions before the problems present themselves, which is the best way to go if they reach out for help before these problems present themselves.
One of my early coaches taught me the acronym of PFZ, creating a problem-free zone, where after you put your plan on the table, you can stress test it in advance, not because you're a pessimist and you're going to think of every worst case scenario because it's doomsday. Rather, what might go wrong that I haven't thought of, so I can fix it in advance. And that applies in for-profits, non-for-profits. It applies in your home setting. It's just a matter of, I don't have to be blind to what's coming down the street. If I think for a moment, what are the probabilities that I'm going to run into, I can prevent it in advance. And one easy example, we were doing a Sukkot festival for kids in Pittsburgh, and I was outside taking care of the food court, and all of a sudden the moon bounce that we paid a fortune to rent started folding on top of kids. What had happened? Too many appliances plugged into one circuit, and even though this was a commercial building, the fuse blew. So that night, I went to the drawing board and said, next time we do this, I have to first go down to the boiler room, open up the electric panel, see which one can hold and split it up. It's not rocket science. It's a willingness to say something didn't work right. What do I need to do to make sure we never run into this situation again?
I agree. So in this situation, it's basically analyzing what didn't go well and predict it, and then fix it for next time, for sure.
That's step two, because step one is there's barely anything you and I will ever do that hasn't been done by somebody else already.
Correct.
Go talk to those people and ask them a simple question. If you could start again, what would you do differently? What was a pain you wish you could have avoided? Now build that into my get-go plan. I'm smarter based on their errors. If I choose to.
If you choose, that is a very good word, but that is very true. So you basically find out from other people also what is the errors, what they wish they knew, but also what are their best practices, because you can learn from there. You can, from what I'm hearing what you're saying, you can predict, right? I mean, it is a matter of looking and seeing and thinking about different scenarios in order to predict what can go wrong, also what can go right, because you can predict that if you do such and such, you're going to get many more people coming. Let's say, for instance, you're doing this amazing banquet, right? And you have a lot of people, you are expecting people to come for, and you order the food, you have to predict, if you're doing good promotion that many more people will come, you have to make sure that you have enough food. So you also have to think in advance. But if you're not thinking about different scenarios, that's basically what you're saying, then the problems will present themselves without being prepared with a solution.
Right. Right. So I have to be careful when I walk into somebody else's event. I have to turn off that part of my head, because otherwise I just see, oh, that could have been in place, that could have been in place, that could have been avoided. And then it's just unpleasant for me. And then I'm not here to give off an unpleasant energy. I might make a note, if I think the director would be open to it, then sometime after the event, find out if he wants to hear how things could be done better next time.
Right. So what is it? How do you teach people to think that way?
It's a good question. So in my coaching journey, questions have always played a key role. And so when somebody comes to me and says, this and this went wrong, how do I fix it next time? My first question to them is going to be, how did it impact the flow of the program? How did it disturb other items? If you had to rate just how bad it was that this went wrong, give me the full awareness of how difficult, what kind of a difficult situation it created for you. Because a lot of times they'll go, yeah, this went wrong and it was annoying. Well, annoying is not a word. Annoying is another, it's as much of a word as amazing. Words that are not going to define what I really mean to say. So it created a difficulty, get them to unpack what the difficulty was. Then I'm going to say to them, how important is it for you to never have to be in that scenario again? Once they say, oh, anything, then their mind is now in a troubleshooting in advanced space.
That's right, because it's important enough, and then they are willing to do something about it.
Right, and in our fast-paced world, I'll experience something that's uncomfortable, and I'm on to the next thing. I'm not taking time to say, what do I need to do to undo that or make sure it doesn't happen again? So creating the awareness to take them back to that moment of pain, discomfort, annoyance. And then from there, that's what drives the motivation to take the steps to think differently.
Absolutely.
Now,
okay, yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to take you back for a second. I remember in my first coaching course with a wonderful coach by the name of Mr. Tom Heck, great gentleman out of Asheville, North Carolina. I remember telling him, Tom, this is a great time of year. It's 2 weeks before camp, too much to do, not enough time, I'm thriving. And he said to me, have you ever heard of adrenaline? I said, I have. He said, have you ever heard of the adrenaline addict? I said, I haven't. He said, read this article. I read the article. I said, not me. My wife read the article and said, Shmuly, maybe read it again. And his point to me was, if you thrive when there's too much to do and not enough time, you're backwards. You need to learn how to be the manager who's standing at the door, greeting people at the start of your biggest event of the year with a coffee or some other drink in your hand, so calm, cool, and collected because everything's in place and everyone's doing everything. You're not being celebrated as the wonderful troubleshooter or problem solver because you got it all done in advance. And now you're there to greet everybody the way only you can. And that's something I've seen leaders step into and experience such a game-changing energy in their entire organization because they move away from being the glorified schlepper, the glorified go-to handyman, fix-it guy, run and solve last-minute problems, and then turn into the visionary, the leader, the person that's going to infuse the organization, the team, with greater purpose, greater attention to detail, and ultimately take the whole program to the greater and greater success.
I think it's spot on, because that is really the hat of the leader. And part of it is also the prediction and being able to encourage the people under the leader to look at and predicting what can happen, right? And make sure that everything is in place so you can actually create an organization that is calm and is productive. There is no need to actually have stress in order to be successful. that is, in my opinion, just a false misconception that the adrenaline addict can experience. And I experienced that myself before as well. It's like everything has to happen at once. So I feel like things are happening. But then I learned as well that it doesn't have to be that way. Things are actually happening where they're running like a well-oiled machine. So that is definitely a lesson. What other, I don't know if I want to call it lessons, but what other observations did you make throughout your career as a coach and now helping other leaders that you would like to share with maybe leaders that are listening to us right now, in order that will resonate with them to take action and actually take their game to the next level?
I like the question. That's a very dangerous question to ask a coach who's always also a rabbi, because rabbis are not known for short sermons. So I'll spare you. I've been blessed through my journey to not just study Jewish teachings and philosophy, but I've been guided to bring it into practice in a very tangible way. And a fundamental in Jewish life, which is a universal lesson, is understanding that because I'm breathing, because I'm alive, I'm here for a purpose. When we pause and think that when my eyes are shut and I'm sleeping at night, my every unconscious breath is a gift from God on high because he wants me here and he keeps me here, that means I have purpose. It also means that he trusts in me. I'm one of his delivery men to get a certain job done. When a leader, I actually have a funny little tradition. There's a bottle of scotch called Monkey Shoulder. And I keep it handy for some of my meetings, because when the leader I'm talking to starts talking nonsense, when they start talking noise in their head, when they start speaking about fears and worries and concerns, I'll pick up the bottle, I'll put it on my shoulder. I say, it's time to get the monkey off your shoulder. And they crack up and it brings them back to center. What's the monkey? The monkey is the noise of negativity, the noise of self bad talk, self trash talk, self-doubt. And that little monkey does not have to do much to get the strongest, greatest people to give up. A little flick of self-doubt. So the leader needs to be able to, number one, recognize, that's the monkey speaking. If it's not a positive, forward-moving thought, if it's not an energizing, I have the ability to conquer the world and go forward, if it's anything other than that, flick it off your shoulder. If you need something bigger to get the gorilla off your shoulder, get it off your shoulder. So the first thing is recognize that's noise and there's no time for it. In Hebrew, we call it sur meirah, get away from the negativity. The aseh tov, move towards the good, is creating a routine of gratitude, of appreciation for all the blessings in my life till today. Knowing that if I take the credit for myself, I'm just silly. I'm silly, maybe I'm haughty, maybe I'm blinded, whatever word you want, but it's simply not paying attention to a channel of blessing that's come my direction. When I stop and I follow the channel of blessing and I recognize it and I appreciate it, that brings to, okay, so you're here today. This is what you've been blessed to accomplish already. Wow, what's coming down the road? Everything up until now is a stepping stone to make today even better, and tomorrow even better than today. That mindset is unstoppable. It's not how much more can I have? How much more can the world give me? It's a very humble, godly expression of how much more can I give the world? And contrary to popular opinion, the more you get, the emptier you feel. The more you contribute, the more you give with your time, with your smile, with your resources, with your energy, with whatever it may be. That's when true fulfillment enters your heart. And if I don't let the monkey get in the way, put together gratitude and fulfillment, and that's a formula to let the creativity up here, another gift that I've been blessed with, just break out.
Absolutely.
So the question I like to present to leaders is, what have you accomplished, looking back now in the rearview mirror, what have you accomplished already that you never thought you could? What are you afraid to say you want to accomplish because you can't even fathom there being a path? But there's a voice in your head that says, ooh, I wish I could do that. And if anything comes to mind, write it down on a piece of paper, give it a little kiss, start picturing it happening, and watch with curiosity where you're guided.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can also, if the negative thoughts come in, you can also write them on a piece of paper and throw it away.
But I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I live in the world of language. You just said absolutely. And then again, you said absolutely. So what did the second one add to the first one?
I think I don't remember saying it twice, so it's probably something that I just do it automatically. But that is the power of Shmuly. And let's talk about those powers of words and I will answer you what it meant if I remembered why I said it twice. But that is something that I learned from you, Shmuly, and I really appreciate it. And I would like to also share with our listeners is that you have to be very conscientious of the words that you choose because they have to have a meaning and not just a filler. So like if I say, I love it, I learned in order to say, oh, I love it, this is wonderful. Instead of doing that, I actually break down those words and what does I love it mean? Like what really impressed me about what you said? What is it that I feel that increased my appreciation for that particular thing? And if I actually voice it, then the conversation is much more meaningful. What are some of other filler words that you find people say that you call them out on?
Well, I call them out gently. I ask questions.
Yeah.
I challenge people to be aware of when they subconsciously say, right? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Correct.
What's going on in the brain? I'm looking for validation. I'm looking to know that you're hearing me and understanding me. I'm not going to pause to say, am I making sense to you? What are you hearing from what I'm saying? So I'm going to sort of be polite and say, right? Not because I'm even conscious of saying it. So instead, if I feel I need validation, let me stop and say, Adi, from our conversation and the last few points I just made, what are you understanding? Or am I coming across clearly? Or did I give you an answer that satisfies your question? It goes to a place of vulnerability because when I ask that question, I'm opening myself up for them to say, no, you're speaking total rubbish. It sounds like you love the sound of your own voice. And I don't know what you said for the past 3 minutes, but now that you came up for air, let me tell you, wrong track. If I can't handle that, I'm not going to ask the question. If I know that without me thoroughly understanding you, I can't help you, I can't be of use, then what's the difference if the answer is yes or no? If the answer is no, great. Let's stop right here and get on track.
That is correct. And it really makes the conversation more meaningful because it allows to the correct exchange of ideas and it's intentional as opposed to superficial. That's what it is. Then you will also, if the same thing applies to saying amazing or incredible or fantastic.
So I was at a Rosh Hashanah Jewish New Year celebration at Chabad of Oklahoma City this year. And I went around from table to table saying L'chaim and cheers with everybody there. And I asked them, give me one word blessing for the year ahead. And one lady said, amazing. And I said, put that into a sentence. I broke my own rule. So put that into a sentence. And as she started, her eyes went wide. Around the table, people's eyes went wide. The excitement grew because she took one word that was a word and started explaining what she had in mind by an amazing year. And I thought to myself, I'm glad I asked because I never would have known.
I mean, you can say fruitful, prosperous, peaceful.
Which means nothing.
Well, if you wanted one word.
True. The activity was kind of like to break the ice.
Right.
Ultimately, when you say fruitful, do you mean more children? Do you mean fruitful in the business front, fruitful in positive thoughts, fruitful? So,
right.
In our world, oftentimes we'll pull off what I call social media answers, which if one word is bad, if one word is bad, a heart on your text, you have no idea why they feel compelled to put that there or what they're conveying in it, because you can't see their eyes, you're not hearing their voice, you can't read their body language, so it's a guessing game. And now you're out emojiing each other. First of all, it's not professional. Second of all, you're living in a world of assumption.
Right.
So one other word that I like to challenge, where and when is the word literally intentionally placed into your language? And when are you trying to emphasize something that you already said clear the first time and you're questioning your own language? So you're literally means.
When do you use the word literally?
When I ask people what they mean by literally. There is something called a literal translation.
Right.
This is the word, and this is the literal translation. This is the figurative translation.
Right.
So I want to ask myself, what about my communication wasn't clear that I have to come back and overemphasize? And do the people sitting in front of me need to hear it again, or is it my noise in my head? We had one of my mentors in Chicago, Rabbi Baruch Epstein, would tell us his golden rule for speaking in front of the congregation. My job is to speak, their job is to listen. My job is to finish my job before they finish their job. That leaves very little time to repeat unnecessarily, to put in words that are not necessary. I have a message, I have a starting point, I have a middle point, I have an ending point. Let's move on.
That's very correct. That is correct.
So this is not my genius. When one studies the teachings of the Torah, every letter in the Torah is godly and precise. And if it's there, it's for a reason. If it's not there, it's for a reason. And I was studying something this morning with the letter Hey, which is equivalent to the H in English. The word Shamayim is the heavens with a Hey, Shamayma. So there's the heavens, and then there's the high heavens. Aretz is earth. Artsah is the lowest level in the earth. Okay, well, if it's there without the letter Hey at the end of it, that means I'm not reaching the high heavens here. If it is there, I need to know what's the difference between heavens and high heavens. Oh, great, let's go find that out. That one little letter is going to lead me to a whole new path of study and understanding.
It's a definitely great perspective that can be, it's a great analogy, great perspective that can be used for other things. Absolutely.
So I do get in trouble. Yesterday I got a text from a sibling of mine. It read, "I'm curious to know how this and this worked out for you." And I wrote back, "How does it feel to be curious?"
And the answer was?
I got a smack in the face.
In an emoji? Like, how did you get it?
No. It was energetically. But you know what? She came back to me and said, "Okay, so how would I ask that in a question?" I said, "You made a statement and put a question mark at the end of it. That's not a question."
That is correct. So how would you word it differently? That's something our listeners can learn. Okay, so if I say to you, Shmuly, I'm curious to such and such, how would you word it differently?
I'd say, instead of saying, "Adi, I'm curious about why you have that piece of art on the wall behind you and that little bit of greenery, and that you've chosen that to be the background for hosting this conversation."
You can just ask me why, as opposed to I'm curious.
Right. So why do I say I'm curious? Because I'm putting in a safety word, because I don't want to deal with a non-answer. So I put in false protective language into my communications, so I never have to deal with he chose not to answer that. But the same idea. I'm wondering, people tell me, oh, I'm wondering if you could, and I say, how does it feel to wonder? And a lot of the coaching I do is fundraising coaching. And when somebody approaches a donor, I'm wondering if you would like to give $1 million gift to put your name on this brand new, beautiful organization going up. And the donor says, do you wonder all day? Or are you going to ask me a question? And you think about it, people that don't have time to waste, they're busy doing business and getting things done. Their words are more brief and they're more focused. It's laser clarity, because we don't have time to talk about what I wonder about, my curiosities. You have a question, ask me a question. Yes, no, move on.
I agree with that. And it's interesting because when I use Grammarly, for instance, and we can have a different conversation about AI, but when I use Grammarly and it is adjusted to my business, to the way I talk, it reads my communication. It does correct. When it corrects it to make it brief, not I would like to ask, but I want to ask, and ask the question, and it's direct. From my experience, some people cannot have that directness. Some people do have to have a little bit more of a, we call it in it is like to schmooze them. You have to do that. You have to add a little bit more of that. I know, not in a bad way, because I do think that there are different people and they want to be dealt with differently, and they would need a little bit of the massaging or the softer language, because so they don't get perplexed or thrown off by more of a direct question. Would you agree?
As you're talking, what comes to my mind is, how do we bring together softer language and clarity? Because too often softer language is replaced with hakachainik. How do you translate that? Just nonsense that rambles out, because I have a hesitation of sorts to face the possibility of getting the answer I don't want.
Correct. So my answer to that, when you are having an actual live conversation, then you can express that with your body language, with the tone of voice, with proximity to the person, with a smile, with a gentle voice. But when you try to do it over email or over text, that makes it harder, because the interpretation is up to the receiver. So you, as the person who is actually communicating, should do something in order to convey your mood together with the sentence. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
I can appreciate that. I deal with that all the time, especially because I will have clients send me emails and text messages that they get that are either frustrating them or infuriating them or upsetting them on any level or exciting them. And I have to remind them, till you pick up a phone, you have no idea what this person said to you.
And that is a great lesson to learn. And I agree with you, because if there is any doubt about the meaning or the intention behind the communication, you have to actually pick up the phone, or even use, voice note or voice messages, because at least you can hear the intonation of the voice. And I try to do that with my staff. When just even before this call, I was writing a message, and I saw that it can be interpreted as criticism or as accusation, which was not. It was basically information and data of how we can actually use it in the future. So I decided I'm going to record the voice note, because when my staff is going to hear me say that, it's going to come across differently than just writing. And I know you said emoji are unprofessional, and I tend to agree, but sometimes they have their place, because I can tell you internally, we communicate, for instance, via Slack. I like to be very, to the point, short sentences, but I also want to make sure that it's understood that when I'm communicating, it's not because I'm angry or because I'm annoyed, but I'm doing fine. It's just that, please do this such and such now, so it is basically, I find, for me, and we can have different opinions, but for that one, if I add like a small emoji of a smiley face and I send it to somebody, they go, oh, okay, I can interpret that she wants it done now, but she's fine on it. It's not like anything like, do no.
And what I'm hearing you say is you've trained your staff to understand how to read that.
We actually have a policy about it, like how to use emojis on Slack. So we don't just throw emojis all over the place, but we acknowledge, that's one thing is we agreed that when somebody sends a message, we can give it a thumbs up, which meaning, yes, we agree with it. We put the eye symbol, meaning I looked at it and I will respond to it later. Or we have the thank you symbol, like the hands, which thank you, got it. Or we can have like a green check mark, meaning it's completely done, or an X, meaning it's not necessary. And it just makes the communication so much faster because we understand the language. It's like a whole language. And instead of then typing, thank you, I got it, this is wonderful, or whatever you want to use, you just go, it gives it a thumbs up. We know person agrees with it, move on.
And that's systems. That's taking a tool called emojis, taking the mystery out of them and using them in an agreed upon fashion. What I appreciate about Slack is even there are times when I'm doing a voice message to my executive assistant and I'm feeling like he's not understanding me. I hit the huddle button and now we're face to face.
Right.
So it has all those solutions right there. Can I be a nudnik or should I not?
Of course.
What's the emoji for a little stirava panim? How many
slap in the face?
How many times did you consciously say the word basically in the last message you shared with me?
I don't know. You tell me. You're the one who is listening. 2 times. Okay.
That's high level. It's another one of those words, which is another form of So I'm umming because I don't have my next word yet. In public speaking and in leadership, when I can train myself to slow my brain down and say, it's more self-respecting and audience respecting to pause, even if it's a prolonged pause, because I'm reorganizing my thoughts. That's actually more appreciated.
You said it yourself.
I said it. I'm a work in progress. That is more appreciated, I find, by the audience than the And eventually, the time span of calibrating up here gets shorter and shorter and shorter. And even if I have to say, all right, give me a moment, I need to get back on, I need to reorganize my thoughts. And even if I have to close my eyes to get there, what am I demonstrating to the people I'm talking to? I'm human. I'm human, and I have a tool to get back on track. I don't have to pull fillers to make it look like I've got it. I can say, it slipped, and I'm coming back.
Correct. So what I learned here is that we're all work in progress, and that we have to practice, and we have to practice, and we have to practice until we are confident and comfortable with delivering the message without any fillers, without any hesitation. And if we do slip from time to time, it's okay.
I think one of the greatest procrastination tools out there is the need to be perfect. And I had a roommate growing up who used to tell me, Shmuly, people who stay in bed and do nothing all day make no mistakes. And so the goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be aware. And if there's something I could enhance and make better, okay, and I choose to do so, it's gonna be a better result.
I agree. And I also think that if you are better today than you were yesterday, that's great.
What can I do to get you to say I disagree? You've been agreeing all day.
I agree, because what you're saying agrees with me. Oh my gosh, our listeners are probably having a blast because it becomes like a sitcom here.
I did ask you before we started if I had to behave, so this is
no, and I said no, because it's much better when it's natural, but I'm having fun and I hope you do too, and so are our listeners. I like the challenge, I honestly do. And I think that people that enjoy the challenge and want to be challenged are the ones that work best with you, because you challenge them. And I can see that, you get them to be the best versions of themselves.
And at times that's easier, at times it's not so easy, because I will have clients who will tell me, don't go past here on my push levels. So my job is to help them find solutions within a certain box that they've put on their comfort levels, all the while knowing it's a matter of time till that's going to blow open and they'll climb higher. But in the meantime, I have to be respectful of their space. So it's a really neat balance of stretching, pushing, and growing within their perceived comfort levels, while at the same time broadening the horizon.
For sure. Shmuly, in the last few minutes that we have here, we usually have shorter episodes, but you have such stories and we're definitely having fun speaking and talking, and we can go for hours here. Let's talk about systems. Why are systems so important for growing a business?
Well, there's the before I met Adi answer and the after I met Adi answer. Let's go back to 8 to 10 weeks ago. I was a one-man show with no assistant, trying to do everything on my own, and to a degree, failing my clients. The time we had in our meetings was great. There was no ability to follow up with them, give them very basic necessary support afterwards, because I did not know that I needed a system. I did not know that I needed to get myself out of my head. I did not know that I had to train others to think like I think, do as I do, to support clients after hours or while Adi and I are talking right now. And what I've learned in the past 8 to 10 weeks is there is no such thing as, oh, only Shmuly could do it. That's a myth. There's what's in Shmuly's head and how to get it out and how to systematize it. So there are many other people who can do a variety of different levels, support work, or even coaching that doesn't need the Shmuly gift. While Shmuly could work with Adi to mastermind the growth. So prior to being introduced to you, this is the best I can do, and I'm trying, and I'm dropping the ball, but I'm trying. Today, what I'm seeing is I have a VA happily working. He's thrilled, doing fulfilling work. I have other clients that are working directly with that VA. We're talking about bringing a team of VAs on for specific support to high-level fundraisers that will never have to talk to me because we put a system in place. And my right-hand man is being trained to lead that team and guide that team, and I'll come in to inspire to do whatever I do. It's not going to take my day. And so systems, even I got a new computer. There's a little button on the top right, which reads my fingerprint. I've been having so much fun the past day, and instead of typing in my 5-6 letter password, I just tap that button. I'm in quicker. My brain is on the job faster because there's a system. There's a system and a solution that just makes it, it absolutely makes it work better, more efficient, faster, and frees up my brain to be the creative tool that it's meant to be. Did I answer your question?
You answered it. I'm going to use that word, amazingly.
I have no idea what you just said.
Well, okay, I'll let you figure that one out.
Now you're getting tough with me. Are there any points that I mentioned that would be beneficial for you to dig a little deeper for the benefit of the audience?
Well, you mentioned many points there in terms of what it did for you and what it did for your clients that you are serving and what it did for the future of the bigger goal that you are looking at. So I think you touched all those 3 points, which are very, very important. My follow-up question on that was that you are actually now going to also import those systems to help your clients better because you are going to free their time by using systems.
Yes, and I've as you were talking, what was coming to mind was now that I'm experiencing it, I can envision their organizations being systemized. And when I talk about 10xing, 100xing, you're not adding anything. You're putting efficiency in place. Like I was talking to my wife the past couple of days, that I don't have more hours in my day. That hasn't changed. I've got a lot more room up here and much happier, productive, successful clients, because just the thought process, as a business owner, the thought process, Adi, that you've put me through in creating the systems has turned my head into a system machine. So now I look at things and say, is that efficient? What needs to be changed? Is that efficient? Even, I'll give you a practical example. The clock's changed. I'm an observant Jew. Shabbat starts an hour earlier, which means Friday is earlier. 2 weeks ago, when the clocks changed, I was setting up certain things in my dining room on Thursday afternoon, knowing that I'm not going to have time Friday afternoon. To me, that was, okay, what system needs to be put in place to make this an enjoyable entry into the holy day of Shabbat, as opposed to running and scrambling to the last second. So when the brain starts going that way, I can envision how it helps others. And today, I actually had one of my, mamash, had one of my clients call me on Slack. I didn't say I want to introduce you to a tool. I said, download this and I'm going to call you. And 2 minutes into the conversation, he said, maybe I should be moving my whole team over to communicating on Slack. And what did I say to him? I think Adi will be very happy to hear you say that.
Wonderful. Wow, Shmuly, that has been quite a conversation, and I'm sure we're going to do a sequel to this to this podcast, because we didn't even touch on so many subjects I wanted to touch upon. But it's been great to have you as a guest on the podcast. It's been a fascinating conversation, meaning that it was interesting, it was intriguing, it was actually entertaining, and most of all, I'm sure our listeners learned a lot from it that they can apply, and that's the most important thing. So if there is somebody on this podcast that want to get a hold of you and want to know more and find out more about what you do and talk to you, ask you questions, how can they go get a hold of you?
Thank you for asking. My company website is rothmancoaching.com. And on that landing page should have my contact info and a summary of what we do, who we serve, how we service them. And I'm always happy to hear from good people.
Absolutely. And also, if you go on that website, you will see a lot of free gifts that Shmuly gives to the audience or the people that visit the website, and they are fabulous. And you should watch those videos, because when you hear Shmuly tells his stories, you would want more and more and more, because those stories are definitely, I'm trying to find the right adjective. The Shmuly is not going to ask me, what do you mean by that adjective? But honestly, they are intriguing, and they pique your interest, and they enhance your understanding of things.
You just crossed the line. What was the word?
You tell me.
Honestly.
Honestly, but I am being honest.
True. Why do you have to say that? What's the alternative? I'm going to lie to you.
Yeah, let me lie to you. You're going to go on that website and it's going to be horrible. No, I'm just.
Adi, I'm going to close off by thanking you for teaching me how to use systems, which makes my Thursday 1 p.m. available for us to have this conversation. In specifically with peace of mind, ability to be present, knowing that my clients are doing well, and if they need something from me, I'll get to it when we're done with this call. And that's a relatively new reality for me. It's a blessing, and I'm very grateful.
You are very welcome. You're very welcome, Shmuly. It's a pleasure working with you. It was a pleasure having you on this podcast. And thank you again.
You're very welcome.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.